Good day, school leaders, and welcome to this training session. This training session is the Emergency Remote and Blended Teaching and Learning Plan. And basically, what the focus is to equip you with the resources and the tools that you need to begin the process, the all important process of creating a remote and blended teaching and learning plan in your schools. This session is brought to you by the Office of Education Quality Assurance, Lagos State, and supported by Holistic Business Solutions and Global School Leaders. You might wonder why you need this training. In 2020, nobody imagined the disruptions that we witnessed in the education sector. Nobody thought it was going to be that bad, but it was. And it wasn't just about the pandemic. It was the riots, it was insurgencies, it was natural disasters globally, not just in Nigeria, that caused the sharp increase in out of school children. This led to learning losses and sadly, learning gaps that some sectors are still grappling with today. We cannot sit back and do nothing. We cannot, which is why we have provided a toolkit. This toolkit is crafted for your specific situation in your schools. And by going through it, you begin to adapt it within your context and see all of the things that you need to do. You need to begin to plan and the resources that you need to pull together to create a functional remote and blended teaching plan. Included in this toolkit is not just these words that I am saying. No, we actually do have resources in there. There is also an online platform, the Lagos Learn Together platform, that has so much resources that you need. All you need is honestly at your fingertips. I am excited about the session. I am excited about what is going to happen when you're done with it and when you begin to use it. And I am excited about the fact that we do not ever in the education sector have to be sitting ducks. No, we will be equipped with what we need to ensure that learning keeps happening remotely, blended, or in person. Once again, welcome to this training session, and we will get right into it. When you think about the fact that students are back in school, teachers are back in schools, it kind of gives you a false sense of security, and you begin to imagine that why do I really need to spend time and invest time in preparing my team to learn how to create a remote or blended teaching plan? You kind of get lulled into that false sense of security. But the reality is we just don't know. When we started 2020, nobody imagined that COVID-19, which was a pandemic that was totally unprecedented and still is, or the insurgency that we noticed, or the riots, right? Nobody imagined those things were going to happen. And so we cannot turn a blind eye and say, you know what, everything is back to normal, because everything was normal before and then the disruption happened. So we as school leaders need to begin to think and say, oh, you know what do I need to do such that if anything ever happened again, teaching will not stop, learning will continue, and our students will be prepared to live in a world that they never imagined they would have to live in. This is the reason why this course has been put together by the Office of Education Quality Assurance, because we just never know. And not knowing is not an excuse to not plan. Every single school leader here needs to understand the fact that you need to equip your teachers with the tools and the skills to be able to plan for how they would teach remotely or via a blended learning format, should it ever occur. And to teach somebody else, you need to understand it first, which is why we're doing this session with you. And in thinking about preparing these plans and starting this entire process, the first thing you have to understand is time is honestly limited. When you consider the fact that you had to bring in work from the last academic year into this particular year that we're currently in, and the fact that there is just a little time left in this academic year to get this right, it then means that we really need to start planning now. Because realistically, how much can we cover in this year? So if we don't start planning now, then it means we might not even be able to get to that space, that place, that goal that we hope to achieve for our schools. So it is critical that you get this training, you understand it, and you can pass it on to your teachers. The second reason why we really need to do this now is that this is new territory. It is new for you It is new for your teachers and definitely for the students and their parents. So there needs to be a lot of support to help the teachers develop the plans, support to help the teachers implement the plans, support to help the students and the parents receive these new learning formats. And so we really do need to start now such that you can get the support that you need to be able to support your team appropriately. The third reason is because this is something that is totally new, you need some time to prepare for it, time to plan for your resources, time to put your resources together, time to work on the mindsets of the teachers and the learners. You need time to prepare for all of these things. Nobody just jumps into a new thing. No, you have to learn it, but first you even have to understand it. And so we're coming from the point of view of understanding and then equipping you. And so we have worked with you already to understand why this needs to happen. Now we're going to work with you to make it happen, how to make it happen, the tools that you need to start making it happen, the skills that you need to develop. And that's what the purpose of this entire training session. When you leave this training session, you'll be equipped with the skills and the tools to prepare and implement a blended teaching and learning plan in your schools. You will be equipped with tools and resources to also support your teachers and your school community in making this happen. This training, once again, has been put together by the Office of Education Quality Assurance because nothing should disrupt teaching and learning in our schools in Lagos State. I know you're all fired up and you're asking yourself, where is the toolkit? I've got good news for you. This is the toolkit. The entire training from here on is the toolkit, and it has been structured very carefully to give you not just the skills, but the tools that you need to make this happen. The first thing you need to understand is what exactly are the learning outcomes that we need to see. You need to spend time with your teachers and think through this very, very carefully. I repeat, you need to spend some time with your teachers and think through this carefully. What are you thinking through might be your question. You must spend time and think through learning outcomes. What exactly must the student know by the end of the school year? That's what you need to think about. There's a lot when you look at the constructs that the children need to get into, but the reality is we must prioritize learning outcomes for every single grade level in our schools. We must ask ourselves, what exactly do they need to move from this current level to the next level? And that requires a lot of help from the teachers. That also requires maybe taking a peek into the next level and saying, what do I need to equip the students with now? What is the base level for movement? And how can I add on to that base level? So number one thing that we need to be thinking about as we go into using this toolkit is prioritizing learning outcomes for all the grades in our schools. The second thing that you need to be thinking about as we go into this toolkit and equipping you with the skills that you need to develop a remote and blended teaching plan is resources. Where do I get these resources? How do I get these resources? And how do I train my teachers to develop and implement a remote or blended teaching plan? This is the reason why we're here. As we go on, you would notice that we'll give you tips, we'll give you resources, we'll point you in the right direction to get all of these resources. It is critical that we all put our heads together, and by all, I mean you, the school leader, the teachers in your school, and of course, your community, parents and students, and create a plan that works. It doesn't just work for one grade level, but it works for all grade levels, taking into account that there might be a need to immediately activate a remote teaching plan or to activate a blended teaching plan. Once again, this toolkit has been prepared to equip you as teachers, as school leaders, with the necessary tools and skills to ensure that you can prepare and implement a remote blended and teaching plan in your schools. In creating a really strong remote and blended teaching plan, you must think about three things. And these three have been broken down into part A, B, and C for the purpose of this training session. The first is the learning outcomes. What learning outcomes are we expecting to have? And remember, previously we talked about prioritizing and the importance of prioritizing rightly. The second part is remote teaching plan. How do I go about putting together a remote teaching plan? The third, which is part C, is how do I go about putting together and implementing a blended teaching plan? As we go on in these sessions, we would give you the tools, the skills to begin to put all of this together and make sense of how you can put together an extremely strong and implementable remote and blended teaching plan for your schools. When you think about part A, because guess what? We're going now into the toolkit. When you think part A, you're thinking learning outcomes. And in thinking learning outcomes, the first thing you want to think about is fundamental skills that they need to move to the next grade. So what should all the students be doing in the short term to ensure that there is long-term engagement, right? So in this short term, you're thinking, what are they currently doing? Because we cannot stop what they're doing now simply because we want to create a plan. So they need to keep working and they need to stay engaged so that we do not then have a problem when we go to get to the end of the term. So they keep doing what they're doing, they stay engaged right now, but your eye is on the long term. Your eye is on ensuring that every single student in your schools masters those fundamental skills that they need for the next grade level. And once again, you really can't do it by yourself. So you must do this in conjunction with the teachers. You must be working with the teachers on short-term engagement towards long-term mastery of the fundamental skills that every single student needs for the next grade level. The second thing you must do is that you must say to yourself, my teachers need some time to look through the curriculum and come out with watertight long-term plans, right? Because they are the ones that are going to say, you know what, this is what the students need in the long term. This is what they absolutely must do to go to the next grade level. And like we mentioned prior, they will need to look at the next grade level's curriculum to be able to ensure that the skills that they're given, these fundamental skills, are actually adequate. And to do this, they need time. So you must create a structure within your schools that gives the teachers time to sit down and look at the curriculum, pull out recommendations for what everybody needs to be doing to ensure that fundamental skills are passed across, and then you decide together and what the goals, the primary goals for this current academic year needs to be. And remember, in doing that, you're doing that across all grade levels. So when you decide for this year, it means that next year, once the children move on to the next grade level, they already have that covered. So the second thing you must do once you've moved from short-term engagement with an eye for mastery for the long term, mastery not just of anything or of everything, of the fundamental skills needed for the grade level, second grade level, you must then move into the stage of let's do this together. Everybody in your school community, which is the teachers and yourself as the school leader, must sit down and look at the curriculum, the one for their current grade levels and the one for the grade levels next to the ones that they're teaching, and pull down recommendations for a long-term plan. You must decide together the goals that must be met for this current year such that you have strong enough learners for the next academic year. The third thing that you need to be looking at is communication. Because guess what? Your community is not just made up of you and your teachers. No, it is also made up of the students and their parents. And they need to understand what is going on. They need to buy into what you're planning to do so that they can implement it at home. So it means that you must also pull out a clear communication plan for what the students will be doing and for what the parents will be doing. And we do have a resource for you. So as we move on to the next slide, you will see how you can begin to plan for the short term and for the long term, for the students and yes, for your teachers, because these are very important elements when you think about learning outcomes. As you can see on this current slide, you will see a resource right there. And this resource is put in your toolkit, okay? So you can always get it out of your toolkit and begin to use it for your planning sessions. Now, what this resource does for you is that it helps you plan for the entire year. It helps you plan for the short term and for the long term. And we have broken it down into skills. That's the first thing that you can see up there, skills, self-learning and teacher instruction. We have looked at practice, and the final thing is prioritized learning outcomes, all right? And so on the short term, what are the skills that you need to prioritize? And you might not necessarily be thinking mastery. you're just thinking practice. You're thinking introduction and practice, because we know that the more they practice in the short term, in the long term, they have a deeper understanding of those skills and they can apply them in several different areas because they are well versed in that skill. So that, for example, is prioritizing a skill for the short term towards the long term. Okay, and then you have to plan very carefully for both sides of this sheet that is right there in front of you. Plan for the short term, plan for the long term. The second thing that you're looking at is self-learning and teacher instruction. So what is it that the teachers need to work on the students on the short term, such that when they are home, if something happens and they need to be at home, they can keep learning, right? So what is that short term? What are those concepts that need to be passed across? What are those concepts that you would find it very difficult to teach remotely that need to happen on the short term, such that the students can keep learning and pulling, drawing on what the teachers have taught them on the short term for their long-term practice sessions, reading sessions, and self-led sessions at home. So that's something that you need to write down. So you need to write down things like laboratory time. You need to write down things like introductory concepts. These are all short-term things that the teacher needs to introduce to the students whilst in person or via a video format, and we will give you tools again to do this on the short term, such that the students can keep learning, self-learning, and the long term. And then you need to look at practice. What are the practice sessions that they absolutely need to take in the short term, understanding that they build from that particular base level to higher levels in the long term. As we know, all learning is a construct, but there's the beginning of a construct, and then there's the middle point, and there's the end point. So we must look end to end and plan practice, plan learning, and plan skill transfer in that way. The final thing you need to be looking at is prioritized learning outcomes. So you need to have your learning outcomes carefully written out, both for the short term and for the long term. That way, you are documenting learning as it is happening, because you can see that, oh, I planned for this on the short term, it has happened. And I plan for this for the long term, and it will happen because what I planned for the short term has happened. Once again, this tool is in your toolkit, and you can always draw on it when it is time for you to start planning. Once you have gotten part A in, which is what we just finished, your learning resources for what? Learning outcomes and all of that, things that we looked at the resources. If you go back and pull up that resource, you would notice that everything was broken down into specifics. So you had specifics for prioritized skills, you had specifics for teacher instructions, you had specifics for practice time, and of course your learning outcomes as well. You had specifics written there. So imagine that you take all of that and then you bring it into your remote teaching plan and say, the children are not working from school, they're learning remotely. So what do I need to do? First of all that content that you have created, that you have downloaded, you have pulled out based on the curriculum, because you're not just pulling it out of a hat. No, you're drawing it from the main curriculum document. You bring that together and you organize it right into bite sizes. These are tiny pieces that the students and all of your learners, to be honest, plus the parents, can work on with little guidance. That's what the first thing that you do when you think about creating your remote teaching plan. So what exactly do you do with this content that you have? You break it apart. So if I'm thinking of operations, for example, I will not just teach operations as a whole, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. No, I will start with what? I will start with addition. I will give a lot of practice for addition. I will not even just start with abstract addition. We would start with concepts that the children learn easily and understand easily by pulling on things from around them, and then we'll then step that up. So once again, you need to break it into bite sizes, little sizes that these students can grab onto very easily. As they grab onto those bite sizes, they feel more empowered, because with little guidance, I got this. So guess what? I feel prepared, I feel capable, I feel I can do more. And that's the first thing that you do. Break it into bite sizes and let the children have these in bite sizes. The second thing is that you must organize the learning. You must prepare it. You must be sure that there's a weekly timetable, so that it's not just now about the bite sizes in all the subject areas, and then the students are wondering, where do I start from? No, they have a weekly timetable. It covers all the subjects, everything they need to do. It has been carefully prepared such that the learners and the parents can use it at home. And who prepares this? The teachers. It covers, once again, all the subjects for the teachers to prepare for their teaching, for the learners and the parents to use at home. So clearly stating exactly what they need to do per time, per day, per subject. That is extremely important, that some time is spent in putting that together. And there is a toolkit, which we would show you in the very next slide, to put this together once again. Another thing, which is the third that you must be looking at, is a communication plan. If people do not have a guide, it is difficult for them to put things together in an acceptable format. So you must think, what is the communication plan? How will the teachers share what information and with whom? And then how do they get feedback? All of that is extremely important. And it's not just important in terms of them getting it, the timeliness, such that there can be a response plan, needs to be instituted. So once again, you need to look at organizing your learning into bite sizes, preparing the teaching as well in bite sizes, such that the learners can get into this, of course, with support from their parents with very little guidance, because this will boost their productivity and, of course, the feeling of, I can do this, right there inside of the learners in their homes. The second thing is a weekly timetable that would help every single stakeholder, your teachers, the learners, and the parents, to be organized. It covers all the subjects, it covers the timing, it covers what needs to be learned, and so they are more prepared to do this all by themselves from the comfort of their homes. The third thing is to have a weekly communication plan. There must be a timeline to this, because when people are prepared to receive something and they get it as at the time that they're expecting to get it, they feel once again more empowered and they trust the system. So once again, when you think about the remote teaching plan, these are the three things that you need to begin to plan for and implement in your schools. Now, these right here are documents that are in your toolkit. They have been put together for you to use in planning for your remote teaching plan. Now, this one right here, you would notice that it has a technology element for both the teachers and the learners. And the technology element we will pull up as we move further ahead. There is a slide that has been dedicated to technology, and I'll explain every single thing that you need to know. So don't think too much about it now, but just know that there's a technology element when you're teaching remotely. Another area is teacher feedback. So once the students engage, how does the teacher get it to give feedback to them? So again, there must be a process put in place for that, and technology is definitely going to help with that, and not something that is a big deal. It can be having a simple Google Drive, it can be using WhatsApp, it can be using Telegram, but all of this will be further explained as we go further along. Another thing is routines, and that we use this, right? So in understanding routines, this is a planner which is used. So look at that: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is learning. These are the instructions. This is practice, and this is communication. It's all very clear. Not several different documents that can become confusing, but one document, one tool that you use in planning. And then when we go to the lower part, you have parent engagement and teacher planning. So what does the teacher need to have the parents know? Why? So that the parents can be better equipped to help their learners at home. So these two resources, these two documents have been put in your toolkit for you. All you need to do is pull it out and use it for your planning sessions when you're planning for remote teaching for your students. In this course, we have looked at um, the learning outcomes, which was part A. Part B, we looked at creating a remote teaching plan, and now we are in part C. Part C deals with a blended teaching plan. Now, in a blended teaching plan, you need to understand that there's new learning and there's practice time. So you must always ask yourself, what can the students, I beg your pardon, do at home, and what can they do in person in the classroom? New learning typically should be done in person in the classroom, and it is important that you categorize it as such. Practice can be done partly in the classroom in person and at home. Now, there is some level of new learning that the students can engage with at home, but still the teacher might need to guide them using technology. So that again is something that you need to plan for, and it's extremely important that you look at it critically thinking about the learning outcomes, thinking about prioritizing learning, thinking about fundamental skills that the students need for the next level, even as you plan and organize your new learning content and practice opportunities for the students. The second thing you need to be looking at is a weekly learning timetable. It's extremely important because it needs to cover all the subjects and the timing. And you are going to have to share this with the parents. Because once again, the parents are the ones that are going to enforce this learning to help that it happens. And in the case where the parents maybe have to go to work, it needs to be clear enough for the learners to be able to follow it at home. So when you're thinking of this learning timetable, don't think of using vague, ambiguous words. Don't think of missing out any of the columns, because every single thing must be clearly communicated such that you are sure that when the students are not in person in school learning, at home, learning is going on very deeply, very strategically, and optimally as well. So it's extremely important that you plan for the weekly timetable. Once again, it has to cover all the subjects. It has to cover new learning and practice in bite sizes, such that the students can understand it and the parents can also explain it very easily, and not just explain, but check and give you feedback appropriately. The third thing you need to plan for when you're thinking about blended teaching plan is a weekly practice timetable for your in-person learners. What are those things that must practice weekly in school? Why do you think you do this? Exactly. You need to do it so that you are sure of what they learn, of what they know, of what they've truly mastered. If all the students are doing is just learning at home by themselves, with the teacher not giving them any feedback, then there might be something that is missing. There might be some fundamental learning skills that are being missed out on that you have no idea of catching. So it is important that from all of this new learning and practice that has been scheduled for home, part of it is brought into school, such that the teacher can get first-hand feedback within the time frame that they're working with their learners in person. Once again, when you're thinking about a blended teaching plan, the first thing is you must reorganize your content into new learning and practice. New learning are typically things that would happen in person, and practice are things that would happen at home remotely when they're home. However, you need to understand that there's some new learning that you might have to do at home, and of course there's some practice that they will need to do at home, and technology can facilitate this process. The second thing is having a clearly defined weekly timetable, clearly defined in terms of time, what needs to be done, what needs to be covered in all the subjects, and it must be very clear such that even the learner without strong parental support can follow that timetable and arrive at the outcome you hope that they would arrive at. The third thing you need to do when you're creating your blended teaching plan is a weekly practice timetable for in-person time with your learners. And what you're doing is checking the effectiveness of remote learning, of learning that is happening at home, both for new learning and for practice. And this is critical in ensuring that the plans that have been instituted in the homes are happening, that the outcomes that you are hoping to achieve by the students learning by themselves at home is happening. So always ensure that you plan appropriately for in-person time, for effectiveness, and for optimal learning. This particular slide actually shows you once again resources that you would need. And I will start with the resource on the right, this particular one that my pointer is on. So you'd see that it has been grouped into what? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And if you look closer into here, there are steps right there. Step 1, for learning. Step 2, right there, think about your direct instruction, in-person learning. Step 3, think about in-school practice, right? Step 4, you're looking at what? Communication. So all of that is clearly stated. Now, this toolkit, this resource is in your toolkit. All you need to do is look for it, and the names are clearly written at the top. So once you go into your toolkit, which has been provided with every single resource that I have explained here, you would find it in there and you can pull it up and begin to use it. Now, beyond structuring it by day, it has been structured for home learning, instructions, once again, in-school practice, and of course, a clear communication plan. Now, this would help you in your blended teaching planning. So as you're planning for blended teaching, it's your weekly timetable, and it will help not just you, but your students and the parents. Now, this is a guide that kind of helps you to think through and plan a highly effective blended teaching plan. So of course there's the use of technology, because there's no way you can go through a blended teaching plan and not facilitate this entire process with technology. But once again, as we move on, the technology will be made clear, the technology segments will be made clear, and you can very easily tap into it and begin to use it like right now. There is a place for learner engagement and teacher feedback. There is also a place for routines, both for the teacher and for the learners. There is a space for the teachers planning and the parent engagement. Parent engagement are things that what they need to work on for their home planning. Of course, this would also be put in the communication plan, but it's a great thing for you to sit down and actually plan for it, so that it's not vague and ambiguous and not clearly stated, and then there's room for confusion. And guess what? Once there's confusion, then outcomes will not be met. Okay, so this is a tool for you that you would use when you are planning your blended teaching plan. I spoke earlier about the technology element, because that is critical. In putting together a remote and a blended learning plan, it is critical that you facilitate learning by the use of technology. Now, this is the platform. It is called Lagos Learns Together, that has been put together by the Office of Education Quality Assurance. And what it is actually a community intervention platform. That's what it is. So it has pooled and put together so many resources that your teachers, your learners, and the parents and the school in general can use to ensure that learning keeps happening in your classroom. Let me tell you a bit about the Lagos Learn Together website. It is a centralized educational and informational access tool that is targeted at pre-primary to SS3 students, parents, teachers, and the schools. So it's not just for one segment of the demographics of learners in your classroom, your schools, or teachers or students. No, for all students, parents, schools can use this platform to ensure that learning is happening in their schools. The resources are free, and they're designed 100% free, I would hasten to add, and they have been carefully designed to meet the needs of the Nigerian students, educators, and families. And this has been put together because they recognize the fact that they have a responsibility to the community. And so the Lagos Learn Together team and the resource platform would further help to bridge the learning gaps for students below tertiary level, as the world strives to flatten and make sense of a world that has been thrown into disarray by COVID-19, by natural disasters, by insurgencies, by strikes, and so many different upheavals. And so this tool is perfect as a resource for you, your educators, and your schools. It is a fantastic tool, and as we go along, I will show you a few more things that you will use this tool for. Beyond the website, that's the Lagos Learn Together website, another thing the Lagos Learn Together team has brought for you is a Telegram platform, a radio platform, and a YouTube platform. Now, you must remember that the Lagos Learn Together platform is a community intervention tool. And what it simply seeks to do is to provide a centralized education and information platform that is targeted at pre-primary to SS3 students, their parents, and their teachers. So this is one of the things that they've brought for you. All you need to do is download Telegram. Telegram is 100% free, and you can get it on any Android or iOS store. It is 100% free. And if you even have a laptop that you use at home, you can also download the web version. Once again, it is 100% free. And it is brought to you by the Lagos Learn Together team, okay? Which is a beautiful intervention program brought to you by the Office of the Lagos Education Quality Assurance. All right, so again, all you need to do is download Telegram. Once you have set it up on your phone, something will pop up. It's a bot that pops up, and you click start. Once you click start, look down here all the available commands that you need to begin to enjoy a personalized learning experience is there for you. So what you need to do as a school leader is to sit down and support your teachers to put all of these together in the plan for home. All right, both in your remote learning plan and your blended learning plan. There's also the radio portion where you can have access to subjects Monday to Friday at certain times of the week. So what you need to do is, again, go to the radio lessons and pick the lessons that are suitable for the different grade levels in your school. Finally, there's a YouTube channel, and this is another thing that you can enjoy, and it is brought to you by the Office of Education Quality Assurance in Lagos State. So all of these are put together for you on the Lagos Learn Together, which is a community intervention platform to ensure that learning never stops for your students. All you need to do is go on the website, and all these tools are at your fingertips, literally. You can begin to pull them together and use them in creating personalized learning experiences, optimized learning experiences for your students, and to help your teachers pull all of these plans together. Technology is well covered, but guess what? There are also study packets that have been provided for you. And once again, they're on the lagoslearntogether.com website. They're right there. And all you need to do is click this link right here. You just need to type it into a phone or a website, and you have access to all the study packets. All these study packets can be sent home to the students. The students can also bring it to school during in-class practice time, and them and their teachers take a look at it together. The Office of Education Quality Assurance has put a lot together for you, a lot of resources in this toolkit to ensure that you never, not you, not the school, not the students, not the parents, ever have to suffer through disrupted learning simply because there was no plan in place. So you see that even to create your learning plans, remote and blended, everything that you need has been carefully structured for you, carefully put together for you. All you need to do is to start planning. Pull your students together, pull your teachers together. The students, of course, will start engaging and learning and practicing short-term skills that what should build onto long-term fundamental key skills that they need to move on to the next level. Your teachers need to begin to look through the curriculum and say, oh, what do we need to pull? What do we need to prioritize? What do we need to ensure that these students get what for the long term? And then you need to begin to put together your communication plan to ensure that your students and your parents, actually the entire community, is carried along. Once again, all these resources are 100% available for free on this Lagos Learn Together website. This has been a really purposeful session. There's just been so much you have been given. Beyond the toolkit, you have been introduced to an online learning platform, the Lagos Learn Together platform. You have been introduced to resources that are global in nature, such that when you sit down and begin that process of creating a remote and blended teaching plan, you have everything that you need. You have everything that you need to provide leadership to your community, your teachers, the students, and yes, the parents. This toolkit that you have been given is yours forever. It's not something that is taken away. No. You would always have the Lagos Learn Together website. You would always have this documentation that has been put in your hands. But it's up to you to begin to use it. And so all of this will mean nothing if you do not sit back and look at these three items on this current slide. Every single one of us grows from a place of reflection. We grow when we say, this training that I have received, how am I going to use it in my school? How am I going to connect my teachers, students, and the parents to this? How can I create a high impact environment? Those are the questions you need to begin to think about very deeply. And to help you in this process, the first thing you need to ask yourself is challenge. What part will my teachers find challenging? Remember, this is new. It is new for everybody. As they begin the process of creating a remote and blended teaching plan, as they begin to embed an in-person element into these plans, what part will be difficult? Which of your teachers is going to struggle? maybe with the technology element, maybe with breaking up the curriculum into short-term goals, maybe even in finding the most important skill that the children need to begin to leverage right now. Which of your teachers would find this challenging? What will they find challenging? And again, beyond the teachers, you need to begin to look at the students. Which one is at risk? Which one comes from an underserved community? Which one would find it really difficult to access the technology elements? All of these things you need to begin to put in place. And this is one of the reasons why the Lagos Learn Together website is not just technology. There is the technology element, but there is also the study packets. You need to begin to think about all of these questions and begin to ruminate, looking at your specific context, even as you begin to create your remote and blended teaching plan. The second thing that you need to begin to think about as a school leader, as somebody who has been put in charge of leading schools into depth, into deep teaching, into high impact, high performance, is to say, how can I fully support my teachers? How can I be that instructional leader that they need, even as they begin this entire planning process? That's a question you have to answer. And it again would flow from the first question, which is what part will be challenging? And once again, remember, you're not answering these questions by yourself. No, not the first one, and definitely not the second one. You will answer it because the teachers and even the students have given you an insight into their needs. That is how you can become the leader that they need. Not giving them what you think they need, but giving them what they truly need to succeed. Once again, how can you support your teachers, even as they start this process of planning for a remote and blended teaching? How can you be the instructional leader that they need? The third thing that you might want to start to do, and this is action now, right? So part of this entire process is not just to plan. Planning is great, but planning without thinking about implementation brings the entire planning process to zero. And so you need to begin to ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do today to begin to solve the problem of the challenges the teachers, the students, and my community would have? What is one thing that I need to begin today, to begin to do today, to create a supportive environment for my teachers as they go into planning? What is that one step that you can take right now? What is it? By, again, reflecting and thinking about all that you have learned, looking through the documents that you have received, I am extremely confident that you will take the right decision. That you will take one small step today, actually right now, to begin to help your teachers to get started with planning, to begin to work on the mindset of the students and the parents to begin to receive all of this planning and help them understand the fact that because we seem to be out of the woods doesn't mean that there's something else not lurking around the corner. We must be prepared because education is a big deal. And I personally, I am extremely confident that you will do the right thing, not just for your community, but for Lagos State at large. Now, the really beautiful thing about this training is it is not only limited to Lagos State. Any state in Nigeria can take this and use these toolkits and begin to create a strong remote and blended teaching plan and learning plan for their students. This has been brought to you by the Office of Education Quality Assurance, ably supported by Holistic Business Solutions and the Global School Leaders. Once again, if you need any help, the Office of the OEQA is just a phone call away. It's just a text message away. It's just an email away. You do not have to do this by yourself. You have a strong online community and a strong in-person community waiting to hold your hand, waiting to help you out. All you need to do is start the process. Once again, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I am looking forward to every single thing that you're going to do with this toolkit. Thank you very much for being here.